An Amazon senior engineer and a vice president, Tim Bray, publicly announced his resignation in a blog post, slamming the company for how it's been treating worker protests. Now, before I get into the details of this story, I have to say this is maybe the first real indication that Amazon executives are fully aware of what is wrong with how they are treating their employees in terms of these protests. So I hope this is a sign of more to come, but obviously we have to wait and see in terms of that. I want to give you more details here, though. So in his blog post, which I'll show you in a second, he first discusses the details of how Amazon threatened to fire employees for speaking out on the climate. So this is from a Guardian piece. Revealed emails show a group of employees who called for stronger climate action by the company were told they risked dismissal. So for him, as I'll get to his blog post here, that was his the first indication to him that Amazon was really not taking employees seriously when it came to the issues that they had with Amazon. But then he goes on to also talk about COVID-19 and how that even more so showed him what the company was actually about. First, I want to read just a bit of his blog post here. So it's on his own personal blog, tbray.org. I'll link to this below the video so you can read the entire blog post if you wish. But he starts off saying here, May 1st was my last day as a VP and distinguished engineer at Amazon Web Services. After 5 years and 5 months of rewarding fun, I quit in dismay at Amazon firing whistleblowers who were making noise about warehouse employees frightened of COVID-19. What with big tech salaries and share vestings, this will probably cost me over $1 million pre-tax dollars, not to mention the best job I've ever had, working with awfully good people. So I'm pretty blue. So this is where he goes on to talk about the climate action, Amazon employees for climate justice, and how they were threatened with dismissal. And then he goes on here to discuss the issues around COVID-19 and how Amazon has treated it. So saying here, fast forward to the COVID-19 era, stories surfaced of unrest in Amazon warehouses, workers raising alarms about being uninformed, unprotected, and frightened. Official statements claimed every possible safety precaution was being taken. Then a worker organizing for better safety conditions was fired, and brutally insensitive remarks appeared in leaked executive meeting notes where the focus was on defending Amazon talking points. So that is in reference to this piece here, where from Vice News, leaked Amazon memo details plan to smear fired warehouse organizer. In the meeting, they were saying he was not smart or articulate. Written notes from the meeting attended by CEO Jeff Bezos detail Amazon's strategy to fight union organizing, as well as efforts to obtain COVID-19 tests and protective masks for workers. So that clearly was another obvious indication of where Amazon's interests are. He goes on here to say, warehouse workers reached out to AECJ, which is the Amazon Employees for Climate Justice, for support. They responded by internally promoting a petition and organizing a video call for Thursday, April 16th, which I discussed in my live stream, I think that exact day, featuring warehouse workers from around the world with guest activist Naomi Klein. An announcement sent to internal mailing lists on Friday, April 10th, was apparently the flashpoint. Emily Cunningham and Maureen Costa, two visible AECJ leaders, were fired on the spot that day. The justifications were laughable. It was clear to any reasonable observer that they were turfed for whistleblowing. So he makes this the central part of why he left this job. The firing of whistleblowers. So people in the company that are raising issue with how Amazon is treating, whether it's workers, treating the climate, whatever it is, instead of the executives taking those issues seriously, they just fire the employees or threaten to fire them until they stop. So to finally have somebody here, I mean, it takes real guts to not only discuss this publicly, but also to leave a job where he is making good money and he enjoys where he works. He goes on to also discuss how his division, he feels, does pretty good work, the Amazon Web Services section. So he enjoyed the work that he was doing. He liked his team, and they were all paid properly. Actually, let me read a little bit about that, because it really shows you the difference between how Amazon tech workers are treated versus how Amazon warehouse workers are treated, and the obvious reason as to why. So he says here, what about AWS? Amazon Web Services, the cloud computing arm of the company where I worked, is a different story. It treats its workers humanely, strives for work-life balance, struggles to move the diversity needle, and mostly fails, but so does everyone else, and is by and large an ethical organization. I genuinely admire its leadership. Of course, its workers have power. The average pay is very high, and anyone who's unhappy can walk across the street and get another job paying the same or better. Now here's the difference. Spot a pattern? At the end of the day, it's all about power balances. The warehouse workers are weak and getting weaker. And with mass unemployment and, in the U.S., job-linked health insurance, so they're going to get treated like crap because capitalism. Any plausible solution has to start with increasing their collective strength. So this is, this is an issue worldwide with Amazon, but especially in the U.S. where you have healthcare tied to your employer. This is what every time I talk about healthcare, I try to also mention this point. When you have healthcare tied to your employer, it doesn't empower the individual. It empowers these massive companies. Because what they are then able to do is, sure, maybe offer you great healthcare. There's still out-of-pocket expenses, still co-pays, but great healthcare. But then also what they do is, because it's tied to your employment, they can continue to underpay you, continue to force you to work longer hours, continue to ask more of you while you feel trapped in that job. Because if you leave that job, then you lose your health insurance and maybe in the process also lose your doctor, lose what you're already used to having. Whereas in a universal system, like a single payer system like Canada has, your healthcare is not tied to your employer. So you can leave your job, you still have your family doctor. You still have the same healthcare providers. But in the US, because they're linked like this, it's a way to trap people into a job and make them afraid of leaving or even to pursue different opportunities because they have put the fear in your eyes to make you think, well, if you leave this job, you lose your health care, so is it really worth leaving the job? Despite the fact that you may not like your boss, may not like what you're doing, whatever your issue is with that position, it keeps you in that job. So they use that, as well as the fact that these employees are lower paid. They use all of that to hold this power over these warehouse employees, treating them like they are replaceable. So if you feel like you can be fired any day, then you are less likely to speak out, less likely to protest, until there is collective action, collective power, where all the warehouse workers come together in that fight, showing the Amazon executives, hey, if you treat us like crap, then we're all gonna revolt. Then, that is really where the true strength or the true power is for warehouse workers. So now that Amazon is beginning to see the warehouse workers use that kind of power, they are even more interested in getting rid of the leaders that are initiating those sorts of protests as a way to end this collective bargaining that these employees are trying to create here. So in case you aren't all that familiar with what Amazon has been doing during the coronavirus, this from Vice News. Amazon's strategy throughout the coronavirus crisis has been to fire dissenters and disparage them both in the press and behind closed doors. There have been dozens of confirmed coronavirus cases at warehouses around the country, and workers have repeatedly said the company isn't doing enough to protect them. Last week, Amazon ended a program that allowed workers to take unlimited unpaid time off if they fear getting sick from the coronavirus. Last Friday, Amazon workers, together with Target, FedEx, Instacart, and Whole Foods workers, went on strike to protect their working conditions. So this is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to Amazon executives now recognizing how Amazon workers are building power for themselves. And that is making Amazon deathly afraid of the employer-employee power dynamic going forward. And also, that reminds me, I want to touch on, so here, adjectives. Here are some descriptive phrases you might use to describe the activist firing. Quote unquote, chicken shit, kill the messenger, never heard of the Streisand effect, designed to create a climate of fear, like painting a sign on your forehead saying either guilty or has something to hide. Which do you like? So Tim Bray here, pulling no punches when it comes to discussing his feelings about how Amazon has been treating these workers.